Welcome into Sports Memos Betting Podcast, NFL every game on the board with Teddy Covers. Teddy, welcome in the pod. How are you?
Hey, Drew, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Teddy. A little later than normal, but we're all right. Starting off here with the Thursday Nighter, 109-110. We got Indianapolis at Houston. Texans laying 3 in the hook at home. 45.5 I'm seeing as the total, Teddy. You interested in the Thursday Nighter?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously with the opening line report, what we do every week, we give the look-ahead line. And I use the line from the Superbook over at the Westgate here in Las Vegas. You can use other lines if you like. But I look the look-ahead line from last week. I'll give my power rating number on the game. And then we talk about where the number opened and where it's likely to move. And some of the things that happened last week that might influence where the number is going to move. So here's one where the look-ahead line was Houston 5.5. My power rating number only came Texans 3. Though I downgraded Houston off that showing in Baltimore. The markets didn't seem to do that a whole lot. Anyhow, we're looking at 3.5 right now, certainly is a prevailing number for the Texans. That what Baltimore did to Houston, forget about Deshaun Watson and the offensive line for a minute, because that offensive line just had a bad game, and the Ravens are capable of doing that. But defensively, the Texans lost 3 different starters out of their secondary to injury in that ball game, and that's a concern right now against Jacoby Brissett, who did nothing but make plays last week. As to where this number is going to go, I honestly think it sits at 3.5 all week. Maybe we see a little bit of Texans money. Maybe it gets up to 4. I don't think it gets back down to 3. There's still a fair bit of market love for Houston, despite the injuries and despite last week's debacle.
Good stuff, Teddy. And on the Sunday card, we're moving here. We got the Dolphins and the Browns starting us off, in Cleveland laying 10 in the hook. Yes, that's the Cleveland Browns laying doubles. They are facing the Miami Dolphins, seeing 44.5 being the total, Teddy.
Yeah, look-ahead line here was 9. My power rating number is 10.5. We've seen a little bit of Dolphins money off the opener. And it's interesting because, as you mentioned, we are doing the pod. Normally we do it first thing Monday morning. Today, with scheduling conflicts, we're going, as you can see behind me, it's nighttime. But there are still emergency betting alerts to be had. This, I wouldn't say this is going to be one of them, but it's very clear right now that the sharper money likes Miami this week after betting against Miami last week in the game against the Bills. The markets aren't excited about the concept of Cleveland as a double-digit favorite. So you can make the case if you want the Dolphins. I bet them sooner rather than later. But is this line and this is a game that I don't think is going to get a ton of action. Is this really a situation where you got to run to the window and lock in on Miami right now? Maybe, not going to hurt you. I don't think we'll see a whole lot of Browns money pushing this line up. So if you like the Dolphins, not going to hurt you to bet it sooner rather than later.
Next game up, Teddy, we got 253, 254 Denver at Buffalo. We're seeing the Bills laying 4 at home, 37 being the total.
Look-ahead line here was Bills minus 5.5. My powering number is Bills minus 6. We're seeing market respect here for the Broncos, legitimate market respect. And, we saw a little last week with that number not exploding. There was some thought that number might be higher. And again, here with this number coming, and the Bills look good. So this is the markets changing their opinion on Denver and saying Denver's a little bit better than we thought they were when we talk about a look-ahead line of 5.5, and now it's 4. And that's not the biggest line move in the world, but it's worth noting that, 5, we always say, 5's not a key number. 5's not a key number. I do the show every day with Ralph Michaels. Ralph went back and looked since the NFL moved the extra point back. Mm-hmm. 5 has landed more than 2, 4, 6, or 8. Okay, so 5's keyer than you think it is. All right, it's not a 3, it's not a 7, but over the last 5 years, it's again landed more than 2, 4, 6, or 8, all of which used to be in the pantheon of key numbers. Secondary key numbers, but key numbers nonetheless. 5's right there now. This one's down, obviously, to 4. And, I keep thinking at some point the Broncos will go to Drew Lock. Hasn't happened yet, and we're not seeing indications from the markets that they expect it this week. Josh Allen hasn't thrown a pick the last 5 weeks, for what it's worth. Denver's defense, probably as good as any he's faced during that span. So the market's showing a little bit of love for Denver early in the week.
Teddy, next game up, we got 255-256 Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. We're seeing Pitt laying 6.5, mostly across the board. Yeah, pretty much all 6.5s on the road here. Another sub-40 total, Teddy, seeing 38.5 or 39 as the total here.
Yeah, exactly. The totals are in a very reasonable range this week compared to what we've been seeing. And this one, you can certainly understand why the total is where it is. Neither of these two squads have exactly been lighting it up offensively at any point this season. Look headline here was Steelers -7. My powering number, Steelers -5.5. And look, if you like Pittsburgh, I don't think it's going to hurt you to lay 6.5 right now. The books that cater to recreational bettors are already at 7. There's no market love or support for Cincinnati right now whatsoever. You know, I'm not anticipating the wise guys jumping in and saying, yeah, let's get this at less than a touchdown. They might take Cincy at +7. I don't think they'll be like +6.5. So if you like the Steelers, I wouldn't hesitate to lock in at the 6.5, where you can still find it. You know, and Cincy again, they got the opening touchdown last week, and you know, I know the Raiders didn't cover and the Bengals got there. Cincy wasn't again. Oakland didn't execute as well. They can. It's going to continue to be a long season for Bengals and their backers. Although again, the market's not offering these great bargains going against Cincinnati at this stage of the campaign.
Teddy, next game up, we got the New York Giants at the Chicago Bears, seeing 6 or 6.5. That's the Bears laying in Soldier Field. 40.5 being the total. Teddy.
Yeah, look ahead line here was Bears -7. My powering number is Bears -5.5. I mean, the situation in Chicago isn't getting better at the quarterback position. And the markets, by the way, are saying that there's no difference between Trubisky and Chase Daniel. And I don't agree with that, because Trubisky is the starter, and for as bad as Trubisky has been, Daniel's worse. And given the state of that offensive line, which is problematic right now, maybe there's a point of difference between the two. There's some difference, I still think. When the Bears put in Daniel for that final drive, that final ridiculous, I'm like, okay, it's over. And if Trubisky was behind center, I'm like, all right, maybe they have a chance. Trubisky at least had the potential to throw it downfield. But it's an offense that no one's excited about laying points with right now. And it's a defense that, for as well as they played, when the offense can't move the football, the defense, they wear down. The effort and execution aren't there, I'm not laying with the Bears this week. I don't think the market's going to lay with the Bears this week. There's going to be a little bit of love for the Giants in the market. There already has. So, the 7 that was a look-ahead line, I don't think we see that again. I'll just leave it at that.
Teddy, we got 259-260 up next. Oakland Raiders, the surprising Oakland Raiders this year at the New York Jets. We got 46 being the total, with the Raiders laying 3 on the highway here, all the way on the other side of the country. Teddy, you interested in the Raiders this week?
Well, look-ahead line was Raiders -3. My powering number is only Raiders -2. And I've been a little bit ahead of the market on Oakland in recent weeks. Oakland cashed, a ticket for me against the Chargers. I didn't have them against Cincinnati, thankfully. But that, I don't think, is going to be the Raiders' role. They've been good going out east and facing quality teams in 10 a.m. starts all year. And the market, not every game. The Vikings game certainly stands out, but for that ridiculous road trip that the Raiders went on, they performed well, and the markets haven't forgotten. Although the 3-0 homestand, is this a fat and happy team? I wouldn't be. We're not going to see more Oakland money, okay? It's not going higher than 3. So, especially given the way the Jets played last week against Washington. And look, we saw the worst the Jets can play in the Dolphins loss?
Yeah.
And we saw the best the Jets can play last week. That's the up and downs. And remember, everyone was going crazy. Oh, my God, the Jets lost to Miami. It's all hell's breaking loose. And, well, the game against the Redskins might be the opposite of that, because they play great. Jets don't play that great every week. The execution level was there. Darnold with a career day. Jamal Adams going crazy, blowing up the defensive line of scrimmage. I don't know that any of that happens against Oakland. Oakland's a better team, obviously, than Washington. But this line's not going up. It's not going higher than 3, and you can see that pretty clearly when you start to look at the leading indicator book. So if you like the Jets, grab a 3 now. If you like the Raiders, there's no rush.
Teddy, heading to the NFC South here, we got Carolina at New Orleans, seeing 46.5 or 47 being the total. New Orleans laying 9.5 mostly. There is a 10 out there at Chris. So, Carolina at New Orleans in the Big Easy, Teddy.
So, look ahead line here was Saints -7. My powering number is Saints -10. For me, it's Patriots and New Orleans at the top of the power ratings, and everybody else is a notch or two below those two. So I'm pretty high on the Saints. But again, my number 10.5, the market's 9.5. That was a pretty demoralizing loss at home for Carolina. They certainly played. That was a bad game. They fought tooth and nail at Green Bay the previous week, and maybe that showed up. But when you're talking about the concept of Kyle Allen playing against the Saints defense, that's just shutting teams down right now. And I don't anticipate that we're going to see a ton of Panthers money here, although there's no indication that this number's coming down. In fact, right now it feels like the type of line that feels right at 9.5. I think it's going to sit there in that range for a while.
Staying in the NFC South, Teddy, we got Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Falcons laying 4 or 4.5 in Mercedes-Benz, 51.5 being the total.
Yeah, look ahead line here was Atlanta -3. My powering number is Atlanta -4. And on this very show last week, Drew, I was sitting there bemoaning like a 2-point line move for the Falcons, going, "Oh well, I missed a number," and then they end up winning by 40 or whatever, a game that was over in the first quarter. I'm like, wow, gee, those 2 points really mattered. Glad I talked myself out of a winning bet with that. But so I guess the point is that even when you and I do that kind of stuff, and we do this full time all day for many years, both of us, we still have those same, I'm kicking myself, I'm regretting myself. And I know over the long term, I got to, when the line moves 2 points and I miss it, then that you leave those games alone. It's a long-term winning proposition, but that was pretty silly. Atlanta was mispriced significantly in the markets, and it showed. They're not anymore. And now we're talking about, the look-ahead line 3, my powering number 4, the market's 4, 4.5. The Falcons are going to be the popular choice this week. Tampa, Jameis has more interceptions. Every tweet you see is all the quarterbacks that Jameis has more interceptions than combined. Another 4 INT effort last week, the most 4 interception games of any quarterback since he came in the league, et cetera, et cetera. Tampa's a frustrated team. I don't think they're dead, for what it's worth. But I do think that this line is likely to go up much more than it's likely to go down.
Yeah, Teddy, and hats off to you. I ended up betting the Falcons after you threw that out there with the analysis. And but part of the analysis that I took away was the change at the defense, Teddy. And just real quick, do you think there's any value on betting the Falcons unders in the near future?
Not this week.
Okay.
Because, Tampa's – I shouldn't say that. Certainly the defensive transformation has been extraordinary over the last 2 weeks. And after 1 week, you say, all right, well, maybe it was just, the Saints out of a bye, not sharp. And then last week you say maybe it was just, QB had a bad game. I'm not convinced that the Falcons' defense has become elite.
Okay.
All that said, we've also seen the way they're playing, the way that they're playing with a lead is a little bit milk the clock. And they've had leads to milk. So there's certainly under elements to the game that weren't there a month ago that may make sense betting some unders. The concept of betting the Falcons under every week here is not a concept that I would argue with.
All right, and it looks like the market likes it too off the open. A little bit of money towards the under. We got the last 10 a.m. Pacific kick here. Detroit at Washington. Looks like 42.5 being the total here with the Lions laying 3 or 3 in the hook, depending where you're shopping on the road, Teddy.
No, there's another 10 a.m. at the bottom of the card. They just flexed it out.
So messing with the.
So let's get the volume here. Give me some doodly. Yeah, and I mean, look-ahead line, there was no look-ahead line because you know Stafford's going to play. All right, my power number's pick. All right, Driscoll cannot be 3.5 on the road. All right, this is a Stafford number. I'm not convinced that Stafford's going to play. If you want Washington, this line again, if Stafford ends up playing, it'll be a bad number. I'm not getting the sense that the Lions are rushing Stafford back right now. And if Driscoll is playing, the Lions cannot be 3.5. I understand the Redskins were awful last week. So are the Lions.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, the Lions have lost 6 of 7. Their defense, and again, they did a heck of a job shutting down Zeke Elliott, and then they let Dak Prescott be. The defense hasn't been good. The offense is not going to be able to trade points 2 weeks in a row. And this line, again, it cannot hold if Driscoll's that quarterback. I'll just leave it at that. Again, my power numbers pick them with this current situation for Detroit. Although it's, I made a misstatement last week on this show again. But you got to correct it. I said Stafford's worth 2 to 3 points in the market, and I got it wrong. Stafford was worth, and I didn't see it right. The line moved from 2.5 to 6.5 when Stafford got hurt, and that's through the key number of 3. So it's clear the market's valuing him in the 4.5, 5, 6 range, as opposed to the 2 or 3 range.
Teddy, heading to the 1 o'clock kicks here. We got Jacksonville at Tennessee. Divisional game here. 41 being the total with 3 and juice. That's Tennessee laying at home.
Look at line 2.5. My powering number 3.5. The market's right between at 3. There was a fair bit of market support for the Jags last week. Wise guy support for Jacksonville. They did not live up to expectations, to put it mildly. That was a pretty demoralizing performance for a team that needed a win to stay in the playoff chase. So I'm not surprised I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see the markets crash a little bit at least on the Jags this week, even though offensively they're likely to be a notch or two better than they were with Nick Foles in his second game behind center after the first wasn't so good. And it wasn't Foles. I mean, they couldn't run the football. They didn't try to run the football, and the defense the defense just got gashed in that game on the ground, and that's something that Tennessee in theory, should be able to do. It's sitting at 3 right now. The only way this one can go is up if you like the Titans sooner rather than later.
Teddy, next game up, a lot of tickets going to be written here. We're talking the Cowboys and Patriots. We got Dallas visiting New England with the Pats laying 6. There is 6 in the hooks out there. 46 being the total in Gillette.
And I got to find the tweet because, gosh darn it, I meant to have it ready for the start of the show. Did you see it, Drew? Because someone was tweeting us about literally about this game.
I'll pull it up.
And saying that this was, this was the emergency betting alert was going to be on this, and I wanted to give him a shout out.
Oh, okay.
I appreciated the tweet. So, is it an emergency betting alert? No, it is not. Okay, let's start with this. Look ahead line: Patriots 7. My powering number: Patriots 8. Markets don't like New England anymore. Wise guys are going to be doing this anti-Patriot thing every week now. You see it. We've seen it. And with Brady, we saw it with Brady not having a particularly good game in Philadelphia. There's not this we got to lay it with New England now sentiment, And we know what the public's going to do. And we know that the books, of all the games, there were some bad results for the books on Sunday. Patriots was as bad as it gets here in Las Vegas. And, all the teasers and all the parlay cards and all of that, the liability on that game was enormous for the books. And even with that, it's not sitting at 7. And, if you look at your screen right now, when it was at 7, boom, the sharp money immediately coming in and grabbing those 7. So this is not an emergency betting alert because I don't see this number moving like crazy off the 6, 6.5 that it's sitting at right now.
Teddy, I can't find it, man. He sent it. Maybe he's just sent it to you.
Yeah, I know.
Love to give everybody shout outs though whenever you tweet at us at Teddy_covers or at Drew Martin Bets, guys. I appreciate you tuning in, and of course you can watch on YouTube if you're out there and want to put a face with the voice.
Bill Sloan, Save Your House SC at Save Your House SC. Thank you, buddy. It was replying to Jeff Sherman. It wasn't you. I retweeted a golf odds something. But thanks for listening and watching, Bill. I appreciate it. But there is no emergency betting alert. And he says, we'll probably do an emergency betting alert on New England. They should not be laying a TD versus the mediocre Cowboys. Yeah, but the emergency betting alert is not my opinion. It's about where the market's going. And the markets aren't, I'm not seeing that wise guy respect for New England that's going to drive the market early in the week. Thanks for the tweet.
Yep, and it's 6, and there are some 6.5s out there. Westgate showing 6.5, and Cantor 6.5 here in Vegas as well. We got Green Bay at San Francisco up next, Teddy. We got the 49ers laying 3 at home, 46 being the total here.
So, and again, the look ahead for the Patriots was 7, and a couple of books opened 7, and they got wiped out. When it comes to San Fran Green Bay, look ahead line was 3.5. My powering number is 4. And we're looking at 3s right now. I'll say, let's doodly-oop this one, too. I don't think this holds at 3. I think this goes to 3.5. And if you like the 49ers at 3, do it sooner rather than later. And it's no disrespect for Green Bay, but the 49ers' statistical profile is impressive. And again, what they did last week, rallying in a flat spot against Arizona, the market's going to like a lot of the things that Garoppolo did in that game, even though he made his fair share of mistakes. San Fran, after that initial flurry, San Fran dominated pretty good, and the markets will reflect that. And the look ahead was 3.5, and the power rating number is 4. So it's not going to go under 3. Okay, this isn't going down to 2.5. It's not going to hurt you if you like the 49ers to lock in the 3, and there's a decent chance this one could go up.
All right, Teddy, we got one more on Sunday, and then the Monday nighter as well will hit. And guys, remember the coupon code TC69 at checkout gives you Teddy Covers 7-day all access for just $69. That's $50 off at sportsmemo.com. You'll get a 7 days of service every play and every sport he releases for only $69, less than $10 a day. Coupon code TC69 at checkout. Back to that 10 a.m. Pacific kick you were talking about here, Teddy. Seattle.
I told you it was on there.
Philadelphia. You're right. You got me. 1 in the hook. Looks like Philadelphia laying at home seems to be the prevailing number. There is a 2 out there as well. 48 being the total, Teddy.
Yeah, look ahead line here was the Eagles -3. My powering number is Philly -1. The Eagles are another team where the injury report is just ugly, and it's not just the wide receivers. Obviously, when you have Jackson and Jeffrey both out, that's your top 2 receivers, and the passing game has suffered enormously as a result. At one point yesterday, they're missing both starting tackles as well. The game really changed when Lane Johnson went out, and Peters was out as well he left, and then I think he came back. But those are impact injuries, and the markets aren't certainly not sleeping on the offensive line injuries, and there is a fair bit of market support for the Seahawks. And there will be market support for Carroll off a bye and that sort of thing with Seattle. We've already seen the money come for the Seahawks. I expect we'll see a little bit more, but to the flip of favorites, I'm not convinced we see flip of favorites here. It's probably going to stay in that 1.5, 2 range. Could get down to pick 'em, but I don't think it gets back to 3. I'll just put it that way.
Teddy, we got a quick look ahead here towards the Monday nighter. We can hit it next week on the NFL opening line report, which will be back to normal timing. We got Baltimore at the LA Rams, 46.5 being the total. Looks like the Ravens laying 3 with some juice on the road, Teddy.
Yeah, and we got another tweet on this game too. So I'm not gonna. Now I got to find that one. Sorry. I should from Humble Greek, and Humble Greek asks. He says, "What are your power ratings saying for Ravens at Rams?" It should really be at 6 or 7. Am I correct in saying that? Well, this is the answer. The look ahead line here was pick 'em, and my powering number is pick 'em.
Right in line.
No, the line's 3.5.
But I'm saying
it really surprised me. This, 3.5. This is a lot of market support for Baltimore. This is the Ravens away. Just like we talked about, this is the week where the markets made the adjustment on Denver. This is the week the markets made the adjustment on Baltimore. The Ravens are now being priced like Super Bowl contenders, and obviously the Rams are being priced like a team that struggled to beat the Bears, which they did. This line surprised me a fair bit. And again, where's it going to go? if you like the Rams, grab a 3.5. When your look-ahead line is pick and your powering number is pick, and you get an opportunity to grab it, put a 3.5 in your pocket, that's, from a betting standpoint, that's the way to look on this one. I know, and I'm just, of course they're going to be a popular side, and then maybe there'll be 3.5s right through kickoff. But there might not be, and that hook is worth something. So again, if you like the Rams, that's one to grab the hook now.
And we'll be able to hit on that on next week's opening line report. And guys, the coupon code TC69, remember that at checkout for Teddy Covers 7-day all access. Coupon code TC69 for savings there at sportsmemo.com. Teddy, anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down, man?
We're all business, man. We're going at night, It's a whole different feel, but it was kind of interesting because I this morning I was like, what am I going to use? What am I going to use? I forgot that we weren't going. And then when you do it at night, you kind of get a whole different perspective because the market's already made the initial moves. You're like, okay, what's next? So I thought it was interesting. It was a good experiment. Let's do it at the normal time next week.
Yeah, good experiment. One time and done. And, guys, that is my fault. Just flew in from Mexico City, actually. So
it happens.
Yeah. Well, we kept it going.
But that's the whole thing is that, the people, the one thing that people never remember is that life happens. Mm-hmm. Life does happen. There are days where I'm in a bad mood, where I'm yelling at the wife, or you're, you go on vacation you're out of town for the weekend, and no one recognizes, hey, where's your content? Where's your plays? Yeah. Where's your content? Where's your plays? And sometimes life happens, and that's just the way that it is. So welcome back. Hey, good to see you.
Good to be back. Good to be back in Vegas, Teddy. I'll tell you, I'm still surprised by how good the weather is out here, man. Thin air.
This is a rare November. It's been nicer than normal this November. But this is the cool thing about Vegas, all right? When you recognize that Vegas is actually your home, when you hear the slots at the airport and you're like, as opposed to what's that? When you hear those, the little slot banks in the airport.
Yeah, but it's not on the international terminal. They're not there.
Oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
There's slots everywhere.
I don't think so, man. It just shoves you right into the customs and border protection or whatever.
Anyhow, thanks for watching and listening.
Yeah.
Cheers.
All right, guys. For Teddy Covers, I'm Drew Martin. Yeah, next week we will be back to NFL Opening Line Report at the correct time. Coupon code TC69 at checkout, sportsmemo.com. And, guys, college football, every game on the board podcast coming back on Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in, and best of luck with your bets.